Okay, welcome. I'm Barbara Winstead. I'm chair of the Department of Psychology, and I'm thrilled to be the person very quickly because he has a full presentation introducing our speaker, our inaugural Connect with Colleagues session, Dr. Ivan Ash. So, very quickly, Dr. Ash joined us as an assistant professor in 2005 with a Ph.D. in cognitive psychology from University of Illinois, Chicago. And since then, he has just done fabulous things here at the university. In addition to being our director of undergraduate research, and some of you know him in that regard, in a terrific citizen and participant in the psychology department, he has also published his research in peer-reviewed journals such as the American Educational Research Journal, Journal of Experimental Psychology, Learning, Memory, and Cognition, the Journal of General Psychology, and he is currently on the board of the editorial board of the Journal of Educational Psychology. So, we do look forward today learning more about our students and their ability or inability to pay attention to us and to learn and possibly even remember what they've learned.
Yeah. Don't worry, students and professors are going to get it today. No.
Good. So, Ivan.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. What a great turnout. I'm Ivan, and let's get going because I got a lot to talk about. I got to teach you all about cognitive psychology in 1 hour. Usually I make my students have a whole semester for this. So let's get going. So this is a few things that educators should know about attention, comprehension, and memory. So let's start off with just what is cognitive psychology. A lot of people don't know what it is. Cognitive psychology is a scientific study of thinking. So anything that goes on in thinking, it's fair game for us to study, and we want to know how it works. So we study perception, attention, memory, learning, comprehension, language, problem solving, decision making. So everything just from the basic components of how do you recognize a face all the way up to how do you make a skyscraper. We want to figure out how all of those thought processes work. Cognitive psychology is an experimental science. We have testable theories. These are usually mathematically based theories that derive testable predictions. We control variables, we do objective observations, we statistically analyze the data. The pro of this approach is that it's an evidence-based science, and the con is that it's utterly incomprehensible to anyone who hasn't spent their entire adult life studying it, like me. So what we need to do is figure out how to get from the laboratory to the classroom some of the things that we've learned. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. So, overview of what we're going to talk about. First, I'm going to try to convince you that you don't know how you learn. Students know how they learn, and no one knows how they learn. Next, I'm going to give you what we use in cognitive psychology to think about thinking. We call it the information processing approach. And it's just a general framework that you can use in any situation to try to think about tasks that people are doing, mental tasks. I'm going to tell you especially about learning, about attention, memory, and comprehension, because these are really the main important factors in learning. Next, I'm going to make some recommendations that you can either take or leave based on how we can help students out. I'm going to make some recommendations that we should be making to students because they don't know how they learn. And I'm going to make some recommendations for educators that you can help teach them more effectively based on what we know. So to get started, we don't know how we learn. Misconceptions about studying and learning. Oh my gosh, there we go. Okay, so what students like? I like to go to lectures first and then read the book. Going to lectures helps me understand what I'm reading. I do best when I cram right before a test. If I study too early, I forget everything before the test. I like to study with the music or the TV on because it helps me stay focused, but I'm not going to be bored. I like when the professor provides me the study sheet. Everyone loves a study sheet, right? I want all the terms and definitions so I don't even need to open the book and I'm just going to memorize that, right? And I hate quizzes. What a waste of class time. Professors are so lazy, they're just trying to fill up class time with quizzes. And I hate homework. If I can't learn this in a 3-hour lecture, then the teacher's a bad teacher and I'm going to want my money back, right? So all of this is absolutely butt-kiss, right? But what sometimes educators sometimes think, I put sometimes because I'm sure none of you think this because that's why you're at the talk today. This is the way that I learned it and it was good enough for me, so it should be good enough for them. I have to get through all the content in the lecture or students will complain that it's on the test, right? Our lecture just needs to go over every point that was in the book or you're not allowed to ask a test question on it. It doesn't really matter how I present the information. Good students work hard and get it, and bad students are lazy and struggle, right? Well, of course that's true, right? No, that's not always true. A lot of people work really, really hard and still struggle. And I can't teach students how to use the concepts from class till they memorize all these basic definitions, right? So what we do is we pack them full of knowledge, and then at the end of the course we do the great reveal of why they were learning all of this stuff, right? Repetition leads to good memory. So if you don't get it, read it again, use your flashcards, memorize, repetition, no. And I teach at a university. My students already learned how to study in high school or they wouldn't be here. No. All right, so all of this also is complete bogus. We call this metacognition. We actually get to study metacognition, which is what we think about our thinking. So the problem is the student is saying, I've gone to school my whole life and studied my whole life, so I'm an expert in how I think. And the teacher's saying, I've taught school for years and years, and I know how people learn, right? You are thinking about thinking. Well, the research actually shows that we are terrible at this. If I give you a passage and ask you how well you understand it, you're terrible at predicting how well you understand it. If I ask a bunch of students how they did on a test, they're terrible at predicting it. Everyone's had that straight A student who runs in your office crying that they failed the test, right? And everyone's had that student that runs in completely appalled that they failed the test, right? The straight A student got the A. The other person should have known they didn't get any of the answers right. So we don't know how we think. I put it to the people this way. I've been eating my whole life. Does that make me know a whole lot about how my digestive system works, right? Or should we scientifically study how our digestive system looks? Or a chef saying, I've been serving food my whole life. I know how the digestive system works. We have no more insight into how our brain works than we do into how our stomach works. It just feels that way because we think with our brain and not with our stomachs. So, well, I think with my stomach, but I'm a little chubby. So the information processing approach. So you need a model of memory. If you're going to teach people, you need a model of how people learn. So the information processing approach is just a general framework that we can think about how people think and use information. And why it's called the information processing approach is what we do is we follow the information all the way through the system from incoming into the senses, the processes that go inside the brain, and then how those lead to behaviors and actions. Now what we have here is we have some ways to store information. So we can store semantic information. So this is like words and definitions. We can store perceptual information, like how do I recognize my wife's car or my friend's face. We can study procedures, how do you ride a bike, make toast, things like that. We can learn episodic, what did I do last year on my birthday, right? We store different kinds of information. And then we can do different processes on this information. We can encode it in different forms. We can store it for later. We can retrieve information we've learned in the past. We can recognize new patterns we've learned. We have attentional processes that let us focus on some things and not on other things. And we have comprehension processes that let us bring a bunch of different information together so that we understand. And we have language processes. We all can talk. We're humans. Humans are talking animals, right? Notice on this list of cognitive processes, I don't have reading. Reading's technology. I don't have mathematics. We don't have any math ability. I don't have Eastern European literature on here. This is a system that was made through natural selection. These are general purpose problem solving processes. That's what this big lump up here is for. It's for us to solve problems and make good decisions quickly. That's what it was designed for. It didn't evolve to do any of the things we're asking students to do with it. So we need to know what it evolved to do in order to present information in a way that the system was designed for. Now this general purpose system is really cool. It lets us do things that was never intended to do. Like our ability to recognize patterns lets us read. We know all of these are A's even though they're different. Make a computer program do that, it hates you, right? We can use our ability to map out large areas that helped us when we were hunter-gatherers, and our ability to do fine motor learning that helped us make tools and use them, and then we drive a car with it. Evolution didn't know there was going to be cars. We can use our ability to spatially represent things and our language abilities. We combine those together, our procedural learning skills. We can do some cool math, right? We can use our comprehension skills to understand complex theories that may span human lifetimes that we were never even supposed to think about, but we can co-opt these general purpose things to learn these theories. And we can also take our problem solving skills and our moral reasoning skills that were evolved to help us live in small hunter-gatherer groups and not beat each other over the head with clubs and things like that, but we can co-opt it to make some pretty amazing social changes, right? So these are all big things we weren't designed to do, but we can do because we have this really good general purpose system. We also do really dumb things like see the Virgin Mary in a piece of toast. Not pay enough attention when we're doing complex tasks. Not use our prior knowledge that says find X, and they go, here it is. We believe things that have no basis in reality. And we actually solve social problems in really stupid ways sometimes, right? So as cognitive psychologists, we look at both of these things. As educators, we want to focus on this, right? But as cognitive psychologists, it's really interesting to figure out why this happens too. So let's talk about how this system works. Now, a lot of you probably had a psychology class at one point in your life, and this is how you were taught memory works. So you have sensory input coming in. We have this brief sensory store. Think about sensory information coming in. It's just firing neurons, right? It's this pattern of firing neurons. Like when I see you, neurons fire, it gets to the brain. But think about the words that I'm saying right now. When those hit your ear, they're gone forever, right? That activation pattern hits the brain, it's gone forever. And your brain's, it's a biological machine. It needs time to take that activation pattern and match it up with long-term memory so you understand the words coming out of my mouth. Everyone's had this experience where someone says something and you're paying attention to something else, and you instantly say, what? And then you answer the question because you thought you didn't hear it, but it was still there. That's your sensory store working. It was there waiting for you. It lasts a little while. So you get the sensory store so you can identify it. Then it goes into short-term store. So I'm going to tell you my phone number, okay? It's 683-4446, okay? Work on that. So when you get a new piece of information, what are you doing right now in your head?
I'm repeating it.
You're repeating it, right? So that's your short-term store. So you get 683-4446, and you rehearse it. And the more times you rehearse it, eventually long-term store says, oh, that must be important. They've repeated it a lot. Let's store it, right? Now, this model was designed by, early psychologists. Axton and Schifrin are great guys. Schifrin's still around. He doesn't believe this anymore. But it still gets put in all the textbooks because it's simple and it has 3 boxes and everybody loves it, right? And they were doing this. This is a model of how people learn random word lists. And psychologists were using random word lists because they wanted to see how people learn new information, right? Funny part is, we didn't evolve to learn random phone numbers or random word lists. So this is not how memory works. So I'm going to try to give you, this is model. It's based on Cohen, 2010, and I added some stuff. It's a little cartoon. These are all directly related to regions of the brain, but the brains are gross and squishy, so I'm not going to bother you with them, okay? But we have a few things going on in this system that model was missing. That model says repetition is the way you learn. Do things over and over and over again. And that's actually, a lot of people take that model and have applied it to education, and that's what a lot of us are using when we educate. Do it again. Repeat, 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 right? Okay, here's my cognitive model for you. We have a central executive. This controls our attention. We have one resource for all of our attention. All the different cognitive tasks we do need attention, and it's a shared resource, okay? Down here, we have sensory store. We're not going to talk a lot about that. It's just, where information comes in. Here we have long-term memory. Long-term memory is infinite. It's, for all intents and purposes, you can store everything that's ever happened to you in the world in there, if you need to, right? But that would be a really bad system because you'd have a lot of junk in there that's not going to help you day to day, right? So the central executive gets us this little focus of attention. This is very, very small. Your focus of attention can only focus on 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of meaningful information at a time. This is the key thing. Your attention is so limited. People can only think about 4 meaningful concepts at a time. Now what I want to call this is what they meant by short-term memory. It's your activated long-term memory, all the things ready to go. So think about when you're reading a novel. You have what's going on right now in this focus of attention. You're reading the words, right? But you also have everything in the story kind of right there to go. So when the butler comes back, you were expecting him, right? So this activated memory is all these things that are ready for you to process that are related to what's in your focus of attention. Does this make sense to everybody? Am I losing anyone yet? Now, so this is a related memory. Now, what this means is this is all the stuff that's task relevant right now. Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. This is all the stuff that's task relevant right now, and then this is the rest of your memory. When you're reading that mystery novel, you don't want to be thinking about your recipe for grandma's pancakes, right? That's not task relevant. It's in there, but it's not up in your consciousness right now. So let's get some information coming into the system. So we have information coming in the system. These guys here are stuff we don't want to pay attention to. Think about in class or in the world, right? I'm driving my car. I get a flat tire. There's road noise. There's things honking. Here's my flat tire. I want to block this out. So one thing that attention does is it blocks out the incoming channels, okay? That's one of the rules of attention. Right now, you guys are all fixed on my voice, and you're blocking out anything else. The person next to you is breathing, but you don't hear them. The reason is because you're blocking it out before it even gets into the cognitive system. So this brings us to, and then what you're paying attention to activates a long-term memory. You need long-term memory first because you need to recognize what a flat tire looks like and have that knowledge, right? So it actually goes into long-term memory first, and then attention, you have a filter here, and this is what we would call perception. When you match up a pattern with something stored in long-term memory. I know your face, I know what a flat tire looks like, I know the Pythagorean theorem, right? Does this make sense to everyone? Okay, so now what runs your attention is what your goal is. So I have flat tire here. I'm going to block out everything else and give focus my attention on that flat tire. Does this make sense to everybody? Or, in evolutionary terms, that deer I'm chasing, or the neighbor clogged door is courting my wife, right? So we have problems. We focus in on that problem, right? So the first thing to remember here is unattended information is not perceived. And without perception, you can't learn. So if your student is texting during class, they are not perceiving what you're saying, right? If you have them doing one thing when they're supposed to be thinking about another, if you're not focused on it, it doesn't give in. I know we've all seen those movies where someone gets hypnotized and then they say, oh, I remember out of the corner of my eye, the man had a knife. That's not reality. If it was not in your focus of attention, you blocked it out before you recognized it, and it cannot be stored. Second is, attention is goal-driven. If you don't have a goal, you don't pay attention to anything, and it does not get activated in memory. Okay? So people need to have goals. Next, what happens is I put my goal there, so my focus attention is going to go to this. Activated memory, this is going to automatically go out and get all the related knowledge I have about changing tires or hunting deer, right? And then that's going to fade away. What I'm working on before, that's gone now. My mystery novel's gone. Sensory stored, the sensory information has gone away. I don't need that anymore because I have it represented in memory. And now these are all the different information units. You have spreading activation through prior links. So anything that's been linked to this information in the past automatically comes up in memory. You don't even need to try. Okay? This is what we call comprehension or understanding. Comprehension is when you take in new information and you link it to your old information, right? And we call this, what shows up, a memory representation. This is your representation of the whole situation with all your prior knowledge. Are we all good so far? So, spreading activation. Attended memory items activate related memory items. This information then becomes available for processing. Comprehension involves integrating incoming information with prior knowledge. Now notice I haven't talked anything about education yet, because remember, the brain did not evolve to be educated in a university. It evolved to do this. It evolved to recognize things, identify, perceive, activate relevant knowledge. The only reason why you have memory is because it helps you make decisions and solve problems. If you didn't, this is a lot of wasted energy and space, and our babies get born not being able to walk like horses do, right? That's what this thing is for. So, moving on, now I don't know how to change a tire. Everything came up in activated memory, and what came up in activated memory is that I have people to do that. No. But then I looked and my cell phone is dead. So now I have a problem. So now what is my brain doing? My brain now, attention, the same central executive, the same central resource for attention, needs to start searching memory. No, that doesn't help. No, that doesn't help. Ah, this might help. I remember I watched my brother change tire once. Get in there, memory. So now what that's going to do is gets in your focus of attention, and it's going to activate all the memories with that. And I'm like, aha, I remember he looked in the trunk. There must be something in the trunk. Let's pursue this, right? And I get a cool behavior. Okay, so this is what the system was designed to do. It was designed to identify problems, block out all the other information. Now, this was a lot of work, and I haven't introduced you to this guy yet, but this is the hippocampus. This guy down here is in the center of the brain and is linked to all other parts of the brain. And it's a very evolutionarily old part of the brain. It's in lizard brains too, right? And this is our learning mechanism. And it's old and lazy, and it only wants to learn when you do something new. Right? If all this information that came up originally would have solved my problem, Mr. Hippocampus ain't even waking up today, right? But because I had to go search for new information, the hippocampus is like, what's going on? Stop that racket upstairs, right? So this memory search and the output of behavior makes the hippocampus say, dang it, learn this. Link all of these things together so next time this problem comes up, you're going to get this information automatically and not have to do all that work. That's where learning happens. When you get a good solution, you've linked up prior knowledge to what you know before, you get something new, the hippocampus fires off, makes those links. Right? Okay, have I bored all of you to death yet? Okay, fantastic. So now I can move on to a new thing. What shall we do in the trunk? What is this trunk mystery all about? Attention can move there, but you see in long-term memory, I now have this nice, cool, new information representation network, right? I don't have to search for that old memory again. I now know there's something in the trunk, right? So, unattended information, oh, that's not the slide I want. Learning, information must be an active memory to get linked. So you need to be actively thinking about something. It needs to be going through your focused attention. The linking of new information is learning. That's what we're trying to achieve in our classrooms. And attention is involved in every stage of the process, and attention is a limited resource. All right, so that is one of the most important things I want everyone to get out of this, is that you need to pay attention to things, you need to be actively processing things, and you need to be discovering why the knowledge is useful, or Mr. Hippocampus doesn't come to work today. Okay? So let's talk about our students. Here's our student. This is really, he's studying. He has his headphones on. So let's talk about that student that wants to study with their headphones on. What is this poor student doing to herself? Well, let's put in a couple more channels of information. Okay, I just doubled the information coming in. So guess what? Double the filter. So look at how much, oh man, that's a lot of attention I have to pay to filtering all of that out, right? So I can pay attention to what I want to do. So now let's say the student's working on something and they don't know the answer to something in a textbook, just like I didn't know how to solve my flat tire. So the central executive activates everything. It's not making sense still. They start searching through prior knowledge. And ooh, gosh, we're done. Remember last time we were able to search 3 or 4 things? All of our attention is getting used blocking out that other information. So I don't have any left over. It's limited. It's used for everything. I ran out before I found the answer. Oh, guess what? My email just popped up. My memory search failed. I move on to the next thing, and that all fades away. And Mr. Hippocampus didn't come to play today, right? So they are turning pages while they're listening. They're turning pages. They certainly are reading words, but what they're not doing is learning, right? Let's see what else this little guy's doing here. So he has his notes in his book out. That's good. But he has some food. He has a sandwich. He has his phone, his email, right? So what are we doing when we're multitasking? Well, now attention has 2 goals. We have goal 1 and goal 2, right? So goal 1 comes up. Okay, I wanna read my book here. Okay, I read my book. Okay, I understand all these words. I have a memory representation. I know what all the words mean, right? I know what these words mean. And then, ooh, text message. Cool. So I switch back over here and I say, okay, I know, okay, the text is sent. And then I say, oh, okay, I get back to reading. Okay, yep, I understand that next line of the thing. Oh, that's really cool. Ooh, sandwich. Take a bite of the sandwich. You need to take a bite of my sandwich. So what you're doing is, yeah, you feel like you're comprehending. Remember, comprehension is a necessary component for learning. You have to comprehend first, then you can learn. But comprehension in and of itself, just that you understand what you're reading in the textbook, that you didn't learn it. You read it and forgot it. So multitasking does not let you process something long enough to learn. Multitasking is great for work, where the point of work is to get things done, right? I multitask all the time. I send an email, I do that. That's work. Multitasking is not good for learning, okay? So, okay, everybody help me. I want you guys to memorize something for me, okay? Just memorize this for me. The procedure is actually quite simple. First, you arrange things into different groups. Of course, one pile may be sufficient depending on how much there is to do. If you have to go somewhere else due to lack of facilities, that's the next step. Otherwise, you're pretty well set. It is important not to overdo things. That is, it is better to do too few things than too many. In the short run, this may not seem important, but complications can arise. After the procedure is complete, one arranges the materials into different groups again. They can be put in their appropriate places. Eventually, they'll be used once more, and the whole cycle will be repeated. What do you guys remember from that? The cycle will be repeated. Okay. All right. What if I put washing clothes on there? The procedure is actually quite simple. First, you arrange things into different groups, right? Does this all make sense now? Yeah. Okay. So memorization is bad because you have no links. You would never remember this paragraph until you knew it was washing clothes. Then in your brain, you're going to put clothes in for the things, and you're going to fix it, right? So comprehension is necessary. If you don't have links, you're not going to learn anything. So this is the student who wants to read the study sheet and just go through and remember the exact definition. Here's what they're doing. They have that study sheet. It has the words and a definition, right? They're going to bring all that stuff into memory. Okay? So now we have all these different words we're trying to hold in memory, just like you were trying to do with my phone number.
6664.
Yeah, exactly. 4446. All right. So we have all these things, but remember last time there was little links between all these things because it was comprehension, right? Now they're just all disjointed patterns. We don't know what to do. So Mr. Focus of Attention needs to go, okay, I need to give a little love to you. Okay, now you. This is repetition, right? And now I need to give a little love to you over here. I don't know what any of this means. Oh, wait a second. Did you see what just happened? Oh, we lost those guys because we didn't get to them in time, right? And then I get back here, and then hippocampus wakes up, and hippocampus is like, God, what are you doing? You're waking me up again? This is so boring. Remember that, okay? Now, but when information goes away, look at what we have. We have these three things in order linked, right? We've all had this memorization happen when you can't think of a song or something, and then someone says the first line, you're like, what is the waltzing Matilda? And someone's like, you know, once a jolly jumbuck, and you're like, oh yeah, I got it now. And you know the whole thing word for word, right? It's in order, but it's very fragile, right? Now look at the other memory representation that we got from problem solving. Everything was all linked together. Any one of these things will be a cue that brings up that whole memory network, right? You comprehended it. It's all linked together. It's very robust. So memorization, first of all, you lose everything because you can only memorize so little at a time. Secondly, you end up with a very fragile memory representation that isn't going to get called up. If you don't ask the question in the exact way they studied it, it ain't coming to the test, right? So that's bad. Memorization's bad. I'm sorry, I'm hurrying here, guys. I want you to ask questions after this. All right, passive listening. Is this what your classes look like? Right? That's what mine look like. All right. So passive listening. So here's the problem with passive listening. Here's the problem with a passive lecture where you're not starting people out with problems. You're not making them think. You're just droning over exactly what just happened in the textbook, right? So they're filtering stuff out. Attention says, here's central executive, a goal. Listen to Dr. Ash's voice, right? Listen to Dr. Ash's voice. That's your only goal, though, because you have no idea why Dr. Ash is talking to you right now. He didn't set up a goal. He didn't set up a theme. He didn't tell you what he wanted you to learn today. So I just need to listen to him. So that's my only goal, right? So at first, this goal gets my attention, and I start thinking about what Dr. Ash is saying. But then the central executive goes, you know, I can just listen really easily. All I need to do is block out the other stuff, right? I have a lot of attention left over. Let's see what else is going on in here. I'm sorry, this is good learning. Oh, get out of here, good learning. We already covered you. All right, so here's what happens in bad learning. So we're just passively listening. The central executive says, I'm not going to give you intention anymore because this is so easy. All I have to do is just listen, right? So you'll be fine on your own. That information coming in, they're still listening, kinda, right? They're hearing your words, they're understanding what you said, but they're not thinking about anything, right? And attention's gonna wander over here and say, hey, what else is going on? You know, I think they're having tacos for lunch. You know what I'm gonna do? Activation spreads. I'm gonna break up some tortillas and make a taco salad. That's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. And hippocampus goes, bam! And then you go, oh no, I just sat through an hour lecture and all I remember is taco salad, right? Because the hippocampus is dumb. It doesn't know the difference between what you're supposed to be doing. Whatever you're thinking about, the hippocampus just fires. Like, oh, you're thinking, bam, right? It doesn't care if it's your imagination. It doesn't care if it's actually out in reality. If stuff's going on inside the brain and you're working on it, the hippocampus will fire. So you just sat through the whole lecture. You heard all the words, but all you remember is taco salad is awesome, right? So there's our problem with passive listening. You need to set students up with a goal. You need to keep them problem solving. You need to keep them working. You need to keep them engaged the whole class, or they're thinking about taco salad. All right? So in summary, attention, memory, and comprehension are a system. There is no learning without attention. Attention is goal related. This whole big lump of stuff that takes up so much energy and makes it so hard for our babies to be born was only selected for one thing, because it helps us solve problems and make decisions. That's what it was designed to do. So if you don't have a goal that's going to help people solve problems or make decisions, if that's not the goal of what they're doing, then they aren't going to learn today. Attention is limited. We need to focus the attention on what they're doing. Students need to focus while studying, and we need to keep them focused during class. Memory does not lead to comprehension. You do not fill students' heads up with lists of facts and figures and numbers and definition, and all of a sudden they randomly link all that together and say, aha, capitalism, I understand it now, right? It goes the exact opposite way. You start with the problem, and then you get them all set up to fit the facts. You want to get them stuck, and then say, ooh, I know something that can help you, right? Where am I going? All right. Memorization is bad. It's not only really effortful, it's really boring, and it's really ineffective, and it leads to these impoverished and fragile memory representations. Passive learning is bad. Active tasks, and you need active tasks that engage attention. Tasks that produce useful solutions will wake up the lazy old hippocampus and make it fire. So when a student thinks of a new idea or links new information together, solves a new problem, makes a good decision instead of a bad one, that's when hippocampus is firing. Passive listening and reading does not lead to memory. Tasks that integrate new knowledge and new information with prior knowledge leads to memory. You always want them trying to link it up with their past experience because that will give them a framework. And you want your whole class to kind of fit together where what they learn in the beginning then gets applied and applied and applied, right? And they keep building it all together. So recommendations. How am I doing on time? All right. Recommendations. For students, we need to teach students and we need to reinforce it in every class. Every class should begin with here's how you study and you know you're wrong. No, whatever you're saying, student, is wrong. Here's how you study. And if they hear it from every one of us, they'll say, maybe I'll try this, right? So, read your books before class. Class is a live show. Mona, did you do your reading before class? I know. She's my star pupil today. She read the article before she came. All right. So read your book before class. Class is a live show, right? This is live. We're live here, people. You need those prior knowledge networks already built up because you're not going to be able to build them in real time, right? So you need to take notes at home. Take your notes at home. If you don't understand something, put a question mark for it and wait for it in the lecture. You need to have them coming to class goal-directed. These are the things I didn't understand. Now I'm ready to learn them. I have come to problems and impasses in my reading. Now students don't like that. They think coming to a problem is bad, so they want to do the lecture first and then read so reading will be easy. That's the wrong way to do it. The reading should be hard, then they're ready for class. Does this make sense to everyone? Okay. All right. And you need to tell them it's okay if you don't understand everything. That's the whole point of the class. If you could understand everything by reading the book, I'd be out of a job. So that's cool, guys. Figure out everything you can on your own, and then we'll talk, right? Turn off everything. Tell them to turn off everything. They need to schedule quiet time for studying. They need to be able to think. They feel like they're studying. They're not. They're reading. Reading is not studying, right? So they need to schedule time, and they need to think. They need to avoid distraction, not task switch. They need a time where they're going to do nothing but that. We need to tell them that the concepts they're learning are complex. This information acquires your full attention. Active reading and studying takes time. We need to get them out of that mindset that they can come to 3 hours of class a week and are going to become an expert in something. My dad, who worked at GM, and doesn't understand us college boys, used to tease me, only in college is 12 hours considered a full-time job. And I would say back to him, well, we're supposed to study for 2 hours every time. For every hour we're in class, I study 2 hours outside of class, so that's 36 hours a week. That's a full-time job with lunch breaks. We need to remind students that full-time means full-time. They have a full-time job with lunch breaks. Because we're learning hard stuff. So they need to work on it. Reducing mental workload for educators. Don't waste time and energy and attention. Remember, attention is our most precious resource. Think of it like a little diamond, right? Don't waste it on perception. If you're in a class and you're not a big loudmouth like I am, use the microphone. You don't want people wasting their attention just trying to encode what you say. Make your PowerPoint slides big enough to read. Put down the chalk and the whiteboard marker. I know you love it, but you don't have to write every word you say on the chalkboard. Draw a diagram or something about what you're going to talk about, and then turn around. No one wants to listen to your backside. No one wants you to talk at the wall, and no one can read your incomprehensible writing. I'm just going to be honest with you. They can't read it. They're not reading it. It doesn't even help. They're not even looking at it. We're doctors. That's the first thing we do is say we don't know how to write anymore, right? Okay. Engage students' prior knowledge. I know it makes us sound all super smart when we use our jargon that only we know, and that when we go to our conferences, we all talk and, oh, we want to be super smart, right? But do you need that to get the concepts across to the students? Is this necessary? Why are you using these words? Use words they know. Let them get the big concepts first, and then they can learn the jargon because they'll have a nice memory network that you'll say, oh, I know all about volcanoes and how they work. Now's a term for that. Learn the concepts first, then the terms, right? Remember, you're an expert. You have these huge expert memory systems. So when something new comes into your field, it gets linked up automatically. You don't even have to do anything. You have these huge expert memory systems. They are not. So don't get into that expert blind spot where you're saying, man, this is so easy. Why don't they get it? It's easy for you because this is all you've done your whole life. It's hard for them, and you actually don't remember, but it was hard for you. You worked really hard on it, and now you've forgotten about that, okay? And I'm just reminding you all, okay? Use examples to illustrate points. Do not ever go through anything that's ever in the textbook ever. Don't even talk about it. Let them read the textbook and then make your class about applying that information to examples. Problem solving, decision making, make them use it, right? Stay on topic. Don't make people task switch. If you switch from topic to topic, they're following you, but you're not giving them time to think about it. So if you don't have like a coherent story you're telling, they're not going to have time. They're trying to keep track, but you're moving from topic to topic. I know, once again, this isn't any of you because you're at the talk, but everyone had that professor that when you didn't want to listen to class today, you could just get them off topic, right? They're up there talking, you say, hey, what did you think about the football game? Well, I'll tell you what I thought, right? That's awful. Don't ever do that, right? And it's fun to do that because actually, I mean, I'll admit it. Don't show this to students. We get bored, right? Gave the same lecture 50 times. I'm bored. Don't let them show that. Put your acting mask on, be excited, and stay on topic, okay? Make your lecture a story. People actually, we have evolved to learn narratives, tell each other stories. We're storytellers. Make it a story. Have it have a beginning, middle, and end, right? Don't make it a mystery novel, though. We don't want the big reveal at the end. You want to tell them up front, here's why we're learning everything we're going to learn today, okay? Reduce the need to take notes. Taking notes is the worst thing. Can you believe it? It's the worst thing you can do because you're task switching, you're paying attention. Well, if you're focused on your notes, you're missing the next thing the person's saying. Taking notes is the worst. We want them thinking, not writing in our classes. Have them take notes at home if they want to take them, right? Have them throw their highlighter right in the garbage. Highlighting up while you read does nothing. Take notes if you want to do something while you read. Bring those notes to class, look them over, add to them. If the professor says something that's related, like take a little note, right? So we give them your overheads, like I did. Some, not all. I gave you the ones that were wordy, so you could take notes on them. I didn't give you all my clicking through of arrows flying, right? Comprehension leads to memory. Focus on this is comprehension, not memorization for students. I should say my titles. Comprehension leads to memory. Memory doesn't lead to comprehension. All students want to study and memorize. That's all they want to do. They want to memorize, 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 memorize. We need to switch them around and have their focus be on comprehension. If they comprehend, they will learn. We need to convince them you do not ever need to use a flashcard. Never just memorize your word list. Just think and work. Work out the problems in the end of the book. When there's an example in the book, stop and do it, right? That's what you should be doing. Oh, where am I going? So take notes. Stop to do the activities. For gosh sakes, people, when the book tells you to look at figure 2, look at figure 2. They put it in there to make you think about something, right? So we need to tell them that they need to actively read, but then you need to set up your class that if you come into class today and you didn't read, everyone else is really smart and you don't know what's going on, right? Everyone else understands all the words coming out of my mouth today because they read the class, and we're going to talk about fun and interesting things, and we're all at a party that you don't get to come to because you didn't read, right? Don't move on till you get it. Like, so we're teaching you hard stuff. That's why it's college, right? Like, think about something. If something's hard for you, encourage your students, like, keep thinking about it. Like, don't just stop and say, oh, the teacher will tell me what it is tomorrow, right? We need to get them in a mindset where it's their job to learn and it's our job to help, because that's the way it is. That's the way the brain works. It's not our fault. We're not being lazy. Now, read actively and then study with the book closed. Get rid, never, ever, ever copy a definition out of the book. Copy a key term out of the book, and then you make the definition. You need to bring that information. And remember, the more times you bring up useful information out of long-term memory, and you need to keep bringing it back, Mr. Hippocampus says, oh, I'm so lazy. Bam, hook it together, right? Stop thinking about this. Next time you see that word, just remember it means this, right? So you want to reconstruct and compare. You want to say, okay, here's what I think the definition is. What does the book say? Ooh, that's not quite right. Okay, let me do the other one, you know? That's what they should be doing. Tell them to throw flashcards in the garbage. Just never make them. I don't know why we use them, and they use them the wrong way, because they read the definition and then try to guess what the word is. And in the world, you hear the word, and you're supposed to know the definition. So they're not even using them right. Like, you don't get the definition first. Once you're a professional, you're just supposed to know what that word means when they tell it, right? So just throw them in the garbage. They could be useful if they used them right, but they're just too dangerous. It's like guns. Like, I understand you want to hunt, but just get rid of them, right? Get a bow and arrow. All right. Spread out studying. Don't cram. Cramming's the worst. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because learning takes attention. Attention's hard, and you get exhausted. Thinking is hard work. Most people don't want to think. They'll do a lot to get out of thinking, right? So if you need to think to learn, then you can't do a big cram session because your attentional resources are going to become depleted and you're not going to learn anymore. So you need to spread out your studying in reasonable time frames so you don't wear your brain out. And also, when you come back to the book, when you come back to studying, you left off like halfway through the chapter and you come back and you have to bring up that memory representation. Every time you do that, you're reinforcing the memory. You're making that memory link stronger. Am I out of time yet? Not quite. Comprehension for educators. Do not be a slave to the material. Focus class time on the hard stuff. Expect them to learn the easy stuff from the book. Elaborate in class, don't reiterate. Have them use the topics. Do not have your slideshow presentation be a slideshow presentation of the book chapter they just were supposed to have read. Don't have anything like it. Is my talk right now anything like the chapter I had?
No,
not at all.
A couple of points, that's it.
Exactly. Why would it be? You are really, really smart. And I know you can read that, right? So that's how we should be treating students. You had to read that. You had memory on your mind. Things are making sense now. But this elaborates on that. It makes you a deeper understanding. So that's what we should be doing in our classroom. Bring up your own experiences and let them bring up their own examples, right? What am I using examples from? Well, we're all professors, right? So I can use classroom examples and they'll go, oh, I know that guy, right? So use examples they know. Make class active. Have students think quizzes are a waste of time and you're a lazy professor. Quizzes are awesome. Low stakes. You'd get credit just for doing them. Here's a question. Now exchange your answer with other people. Talk about your answer. Instant feedback. Those are great things to do in class. Group activities where they apply their knowledge. That's when they learn. They have all this stuff floating around in their head from reading, but it hasn't been connected. Make them do an activity that has them solve a problem or make a good decision. Hippocampus shoots out, makes the links for them, right? Question and answer time, which I'm not going to leave you guys any, so I'm not following my own advice. Question and answer time, right? If they're actively learning and actively reading, lectures becomes a conversation, and now conversation is a lot more fun than a lecture because they're actually asking smart questions and they're letting you know exactly what information they need elaboration on, and you guys are just talking about stuff, right? Focus on the important content. What are you trying to teach them, and what are you actually teaching them? I'm a statistics guy. I love statistics. I teach statistics at a graduate level, and I got a C the first time I took statistics. I'm going to reveal that to you, because here's what my statistics class was. Here's a mean. A mean is the sum of x over n. Do it. Here's another set of x's. Do it. Here's another set of x's. Do it. Now here's a standard deviation. That is x minus x bar squared, sum it up, divided by n minus 1. Now do it again. Do it again. I was pretty smart. I had gotten an A in Calc 3. I was in physics before I went to psychology. I don't know why I'm doing any of this. What is x? Why am I doing it, right? I was learning a lot about order of operations, about addition, subtraction. I already knew all that. So what she was teaching me was order of operation, and I didn't learn anything about statistics, right? Turned out, I found out later, computers do math really good. What they don't do is choose the right analysis to do or interpret the analysis. So we're spending all the class time on all the stuff that I'm never going to do my whole entire life, right? So that is something you should always think about. Why am I even telling them this? Do they need to know this? Why am I making them do this task? Okay? Problem-based instruction is good. Getting stuck is good. Don't give them the answer till they know the question. We don't learn facts, we learn solutions, so you need to set up problems, then show them material to help them solve the problem. And let them know it's okay to get stuck. Set up students to get stuck on a problem. Put them in a position that if they don't know your secret knowledge, they can't do this. And then when everyone in the room is stuck, do the great reveal and the hippocampus fires for everyone, right? This activates their relevant knowledge when you're stuck, and it primes them to be ready for a solution. When you're stuck, you don't like it. When you don't know an answer, you're just there all uneasy. And then when you get the solution, hippocampus is like, oh, thank God I don't have to think about that again, right? So lazy and dumb. All right. So, and also have them demonstrate their mastery through performance. Show that they can solve harder problems. Show that they're making better decisions. Have them apply their knowledge to new situations, not just recognition. Don't have a multiple choice test be the only way they've ever demonstrated their knowledge. The multiple choice test is probably the single best assessment tool on the face of the earth, and it's the single worst learning tool on the face of the earth. Multiple choice tests are for assessment, not a learning tool. You need them to see their mastery and that they're learning stuff in different ways than that for them to stay motivated and see what you're teaching them as important. I am done, and we have like 10 minutes for questions, I think. So thank you, guys. Oh, please raise your hand for questions, and please use the microphone because we're trying to record this and put it on the web for people who couldn't come.
Fascinating lecture. Thank you very much. What's the thinking on Bloom's taxonomy of learning? Is that kind of invalidated? Because it seems like you're distinguishing between memory and cognition, and Bloom has like 7 different categories. So what's your thinking about that taxonomy now?
Yeah, no. Memory is memory. You know, memory is memory is memory. People talk about the difference between like implicit and explicit memory, and that's kind of all gone out the window. What the difference between implicit and explicit is just if you can remember the episodic source of the information or not, right? So memory is memory. I mean, if you look at the brain, it's all made of the same goop. So spatial learning isn't different than learning anything else. And you know, we kind of got rid of all those ideas of learning styles and things like that. Now, there is a difference. Like perceptual motor skills, right? Like if I'm going to learn a golf swing, right? That just needs to be brute force. The only way to do that is through brute force, right? If I'm going to learn to play piano, that's just brute force. I just need to do that. When we were first learning our letters, right? The shape A has nothing to do with A. There is no conceptual knowledge that can be used there, right? So we just need to do that brute force repetition. Does that make sense? It's the only way to get it in. Luckily, we're dealing here at college with people with fully formed brains, lots of things, and most of the things we're teaching them are conceptual. So that type of brute force learning is just not necessary. And when we learn is by thinking and solving problems. We got to remember all the time that the brain is not a learning mechanism. It is not designed to learn. It is not designed to remember. That's not the point of it. It's a problem-solving machine, and it only remembers things when it helps it solve problems or make decisions. So that's just what I'm trying to get is the whole goal. Just remember what the brain is for and teach what the brain needs, right? Teach to what the brain is for. That, I think, is more important. Now, I'm sure there's, you know, I'm not going to say anything bad about camera about anybody, but you know, that I think is just more important. There's general things. Attention is key, and the brain is made to solve problems. If we go with those, we're doing a lot already. Yes. Oh, wait.
Oh, hang on. She's over here.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Hi.
I'm not in charge, actually. OK, go ahead.
I teach University 110 students, the freshmen in academic difficulty. And this would be in a perfect world. How do you teach them to learn when their teachers are requiring them to memorize?
That's the thing. So you need to have them, you know, for them, I would say, OK, let me stop and think. OK, we need to just tell them that comprehension will lead to memory. People think they need to memorize because they need to do a multiple choice test, right? And they need to see that term and be able to choose the ABC. I just am telling you right now, if they focus on active learning and studying and comprehension, they'll do better on that multiple choice test. So that's what you need to convince them. You need to convince them that comprehension leads to memory. Memorization does not actually even lead to memory. Memorization, as I was trying to argue, leads to bad memory that's easily failed and easily forgotten. So if we orient them that the problem is, a lot of students think they're not good at stuff, and it's true. We're not good at math. We didn't evolve to do it. It's recently invented, and it's the technology. I'm not good at reading. That's true. It's recently invented. We did not evolve to do it. That you are right. No one is good at that, right? So we need to just admit it and teach people in the way that the brain was evolved to learn. And they will perform better even on the, like once again, the multiple choice test is the best assessment tool designed by man for you to assess who's doing well in your class. But if you have people comprehending, they'll do better on that as well. Someone has a microphone. I got to go with the microphone. Okay.
I teach foreign language.
Yes.
And which is, in my estimation of it, quite like learning play the piano, which
Yes.
you have to kind of, like a musical instrument. So how do you see this applied to our trying to teach foreign language to our students at this level?
Indeed. Well, it depends.
Because it really is memorization. It seems to be sort of what you.
But think about
something
how a
you
baby
have
learns,
to
though.
do, right?
I mean, this wasn't the point of my talk, but once again, I think you go back to evolution and you go back to how a baby learns,
Yeah.
because they're the ones who learn, right? And there's been a lot of research on this, and it's been shown that memorization actually doesn't help. I mean, I have a 3-year-old. She did not learn to talk through memorization. She learned to talk through immersion, through doing it, through trying, through having conversations, through pointing, goal-directed. The reason why my kid learned to say milk is because she wanted some milk and I wasn't paying attention, right? So even at this level, having people use stuff, and when they use it, it completes goals, that's going to help them learn better. So even at that basic level, if they're just trying to learn this equals this in English, that's not the best way to do it. If you can set up situations where they can accomplish goals, hippocampus is going to go off and say, that word gets me beer, right? So that's, you know, I mean, the first foreign word everyone learns on traveling is waiter, beer, and bathroom. Is that just me? Like, I know how to say that in every country I've ever been in, right? That's the goal-related learning. So I think you can do it. You just need to set up situations and be creative. You know? Someone has a microphone.
I got the microphone.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back a little bit to Bloom's taxonomy, et cetera. When the brain is trying to make sense and relate things together, one way of thinking about Bloom's taxonomy, et cetera, is, you know, if you do an analysis, you do a synthesis, you do different kinds of things with
Yep.
information, you combine it in different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
So does the brain just combine it anyway, or is there a value to demonstrating, providing examples, articulating ways that information might be related, and giving students opportunities to practice in doing that?
That's exactly what you want to be doing, right? There's a lot. It's called discovery-based or problem-based learning. There's a whole research literature on this. And what's been shown is that if you just give people a problem and let them go about it, they don't learn anything, right? So what really has been shown is that you need that guided problem solving. You need to set them up with a problem. You need to try to convince them and get them to the stuck point, and then you say, hey, why don't you try this? So yes, it needs to be structured. You can't just say, you know, hey, I'm going to teach you microbiology. Here's a lab with microscopes, right? Like you do, but you need to set them up, and you do need to have them doing this. And the more different ways you have them think about something, like a really complex concept, and apply it to more situations, every time they find that that works to solve a problem in a new thing or lets you understand something else, that's a good thing. So that active processing is always good, and get them there, you know, string them in and then say, see how these work together, but you need to get them at the point where they're wondering, right? You can't just say, this is related to this, is related to this, and they're like, but why did I care? You need to get them to the point where they're saying, oh, and like that helps them know something now. They see the value in making that connection, right? Like, you know, that's what good part about examples. You say this general like theory that I've taught you here. You know, I'm going to use a stats example because I'm a stats guy, right? You know, you teach them a general rule or a general principle, and then you show them how it can help them make decisions in so many different, you know, situations. Like the mean is a great thing. Now that you know the mean, look at all the stuff you could do. You can use it at home. You can use it here. What am I spending on average per day? And every time they're using it, they're saying, wow, these are cool solutions. That's a useful piece of information.
Can I disagree with you?
Indeed.
Okay. So is it working? Okay. I'm trying to bring biological perspective into the same story. I think that it's been simplified because we're only talking about concept learning here.
Yes.
But what the questions are, and what I'm talking about myself, is when we actually have to learn straight facts, like memorizing the language or memorizing the terminology,
Yes.
like body anatomy. That's it.
Yep.
So you have a skeleton, that's it, that's it,
Yep.
that's. So the the flashcards
Yes.
do work. It's
I
just
understand.
how they work and how the brain works to learn straight memorization. It's you have to engage different senses. You have to see it,
Yep.
you have to write it, you have to speak it, and you have to hear it.
Indeed.
If you're using the flashcard or any kind of straight memorization,
Yep.
like language learning, same way we're trying to learn, to teach students the terminology in biology.
Yep.
You hear it, you say it yourself, you write it,
Yes.
and you see it. By
Indeed.
engaging all the senses,
Yes.
you can memorize the word that you have no concept associated with,
Yep.
except this is a leg.
And
or
I'm going to
it's
argue.
mean
I'm going to argue
X.
that if you could figure out a way to make people actively learning that, where they're doing some sort of task with the anatomy, they have a goal,
Right.
and they need to use that term in order to complete their goal, they would learn it faster. They'd probably learn it in one trial, and they'd learn it better. Now, you don't have to
No,
believe
I agree.
me
No,
because
I
I'm sure
agree.
you can't
No, I
convince
absolutely-
everyone
I agree that would
intelligent
work.
design's wrong.
I agree
but
that would work.
Yes.
But it's impossible to make it work because simply it's a small part of course that involves so many things. So
understand.
we
And
cannot build the entire course
I understand.
around one simple
I understand.
learning task, right?
And-
so this is part.
I understand. And,
And-
I understand what you're saying. And what I'm saying is, do they need to know? Well, first of all, what's your goal? Do they need to know that term to be able to do what you want them to do? I learned a lot of terms in biologies I never need to know again. It's just more important that I had a general idea of how the circulatory system works, how the respiratory system works,
Right.
you know what I mean? So first of all, what's your goal, and does that term in any way relate to your goal of that class? So that's the first thing to think about always. The second thing is to always just start with the general. Do you need them to learn that before you can teach them about the legs and the bone structures? Or can you just teach them conceptually about how these things relate and then fit the terms in afterwards? So what I'm arguing here is not that people don't need to learn terms. It's that the idea, and this is the way a lot of people have been taught, and that was from that modal model where you have to rehearse things and then it gets in the long-term memory, is a lot of people think that they need to know all the basic terms and all the things, and then that's going to all combine together miraculously into conceptual knowledge. And what the argument I was making today is it's actually the opposite way around. You need to have them understand the full system. You need to present things in a way where they're getting meaningful understanding, and then they will learn the terms. Then once they know the full system, they understand what's going on, and you show them while they're useful, they'll learn them. But I understand sometimes you do need to do straight memorization, but I just am asking everyone to ask, like, do I need to know the proper name for this bone if I am taking a biology class at a 100 level? Is that the information you want them to know? So that's just what I really want everyone to think about. That's the hard part, is linking these terms, and is that the information we want, or do we want them to understand the big concepts, the big systems? And what I'm arguing, what the data shows and what all this research is showing, is if you teach them the big concepts, you set them up with the memory structures where the terms and the information gets in.
No, that all makes sense because that's the whole talk was about, and everybody understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that you cannot just say memorization doesn't work. The flashcards don't work. It's just how you use it, because you still have to teach the material based on the facts. They still have to be able to memorize certain facts because these facts will be used. This terminology will be used later. That's why we teach it.
I believe the exact opposite thing as you.
Well, because guess what? You
Okay.
teaching exact opposite stuff than I am.
I understand.
And because you thinking in opposite ways that we
I
do,
understand.
right?
No,
But-
this is all based on research, though.
No,
I'm
of
telling you
course,
what
of course.
30 years of cognitive science have told us. And once again,
course.
I'm not trying to sell anyone who doesn't want to use this. So you do whatever you want to do in your class. I don't care. I do whatever I want to do in my classes, right?
No, I actually do what you say, which
Okay.
is funny, maybe, because I do it, without reading that. So that's what I do based on what I read.
I
And
understand.
I already use that. But my question is, we still have all those facts and all this memorization involved.
I
and
understand.
it's not going to be gone because I decide, okay, they don't need to learn any body parts Latin name because simply, it's very hard to link to nice story that's funny, and they
Okay.
can jump off from that.
Indeed.
So that has to be incorporated into the.
I'm just saying, sometimes, like I was saying to them, sometimes you do need to learn things by brute force, and that's what memorization is. But if you can ever not do memorization, it would be better.
Well, yeah.
If you can ever not do it, but that's the problem is most people think that's the only way to learn, and that's the best way to learn. And the argument I'm making is whenever you can make things meaningful and conceptually relevant and put things in a problem perspective, learning is going to happen a lot faster. It's going to be a lot funner. Learning is always going to be hard work for a student. That's one thing we need. Learning's never easy. It's always hard, but it doesn't have to be miserable, right? We do a lot of things that are hard. We play chess and we play video games. They do a lot of things that are really hard that are fun, right? And they're fun because they're challenging, they engage attention. So memorization is bad, and if you can avoid it, don't have anyone ever do it again. That would be the point I'd try to make.